Okay, so welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to get into something pretty fundamental. What we're all made of.
Literally the elements of life.
Yeah, and I've got to say, these excerpts you sent over from Bioelements and the Chemistry of Living Organisms, really fascinating stuff. I mean, I always knew we were made of, the stuff of stars and all, but...
Right, it's more complex than you might think.
Yeah, there are so many surprises. So, just to start, right? Did you know that more than 96% of all living things, us included, are made up of just 6 elements?
6?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
6. It's carbon, hydrogen, oxygen,
nitrogen,
phosphorus, and sulfur. That's it. CHOMPS. It just seems crazy that so few ingredients make up.
I know. It really is amazing. You think about the diversity of life, right? And it all boils down to...
But how's that even possible?
Well, it's all about the unique properties of these elements and how they interact. For example, take carbon. It can form bonds with up to 4 other atoms.
So it's super versatile.
Exactly. It can create these long chains and complex 3-dimensional structures. And that's what makes it kind of like the backbone, the scaffolding for those really important big molecules.
You mean like carbohydrates and lipids?
Yes, and proteins and nucleic acids. The building blocks of life, basically.
So it's I don't know, those construction toys. You could build anything with just a few basic pieces.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And the way those macromolecules interact and combine is just mind-blowing. That's where the complexity really comes in.
Definitely. Okay, well, let's break it down a little. Let's talk about each of those CHOMPS elements a bit more. We'll start with oxygen. I mean, we all know it's what we breathe, but what else is it doing?
Well, oxygen is super reactive. It interacts with other elements really easily, and that's actually how we get energy.
Oh, right. Metabolism.
Exactly. So it's oxygen is the spark that gets the fire going. It's happening in every single cell in your body constantly.
I never really thought about it like that. Wild. Okay, how about nitrogen? The source mentions it plays a big role in, brain function and mood.
It does. Think about it this way. What happens when you get a rush of adrenaline? Or that feeling of focus from noradrenaline?
Or that, happy dopamine rush.
Yes. Or the calm of serotonin. These neurotransmitters and hormones, too, they all rely on nitrogen.
So it's not just about building proteins, it's actually part of how we think and feel.
That's right.
Wow. Okay, next up, phosphorus. I always associate it with bones, strong bones, but the source says it does more than that.
Way more. Phosphorus is actually part of DNA and RNA, the genetic code.
No way. So without phosphorus, our cells couldn't even copy themselves.
Exactly. No replication, no heredity. It's crucial for the continuity of life itself.
That's pretty profound. I'm starting to see phosphorus in a new light.
And it's also involved in how cells transfer energy, like ATP, adenosine triphosphate.
Energy molecule, yeah.
Right. It relies on phosphorus. Plus, it's also a key part of phospholipids, which make up cell membranes.
Okay, phosphorus is officially way more important than I ever thought.
For sure.
Okay, so the last one of the big 6 is sulfur. I have to admit, the first thing that comes to mind is rotten eggs.
Yeah, sulfur can get a bad rap because of the smell, but it's super important too, crucial for protein structure. There are these 2 amino acids, methionine and cysteine.
Okay.
And they both contain sulfur, and they play this huge role in how proteins fold and stay stable.
So without them, proteins would just fall apart.
Basically, they wouldn't be able to function properly at all.
So even the smelly stuff has a purpose. It's all connected.
It really is.
Okay, so we've covered the main 6, but what about those other essential elements? The ones we don't hear about as often?
Yeah, there are a bunch of others. They might be less abundant, but they're still super important, like iron, for example.
Oh yeah, for healthy blood, right?
Right. It's part of hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen around the body. If you don't have enough iron, you can get anemia, and that makes you tired and weak.
I've definitely heard that one before. So important, get enough iron.
For sure. And then there's calcium, for bones and teeth, but also for muscle contractions. And potassium and sodium, they work together to make sure nerves can send signals.
And to regulate fluids.
Yes. And we can't forget magnesium. It's essential for, hundreds of enzyme reactions in the body. And it's even a key part of chlorophyll.
What's that?
Chlorophyll is what plants use to capture energy from sunlight.
Oh, right. Photosynthesis. So one element can be involved in all sorts of different processes.
Exactly. And then you have things like fluorine, which is important for healthy teeth, iodine for your thyroid, zinc for immune function.
So many. It's hard to keep track, but they all have their own unique roles.
They do. They all work together to make life happen.
And it's not just the elements themselves, right? It's also the environment they're in. And like the source mentions that the most abundant molecule in living things is, well, water.
It is. Cells are about 80% water, which makes sense when you think about how important it is.
I know, we kind of take it for granted.
We really do. I mean, think about it. Water dissolves and transports stuff so it carries nutrients and gets rid of waste. It helps regulate temperature.
It lubricates our joints.
Yes, and it protects organs and tissues. I mean, water is amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's like the foundation that everything else is built on.
That's a great way to put it.
So I guess the takeaway here is that even though life is incredibly complex, it all boils down to a surprisingly small set of ingredients.
It does. It's like this intricate recipe, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and boom, you have life.
It makes you wonder, though, like if we can understand how these elements work together, could we maybe use that knowledge to solve health problems?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Or even design new materials, new therapies?
Definitely something to think about.
Well, there you have it. Just a little deep dive into the world of bioelements. Hopefully you learned something new. There's always more to explore, so keep those brains buzzing, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.